one thing I've been asked to do on many, many, many occasions is to cover my physical media collection. And I thought it would be fun to break it up into these little segments and cover them very specifically. And what better way to start than with the filmography of John Carpenter, probably a lot of people's most favorite director in the genre. And I have quite the little collection of Carpenter films here. So we're going to start where it all began with the 1974 film that was supposed to be a student film, but ended up turning into a feature that was his very first release. And this is Dark Star. Yep, he made this with Dan O'Bannon. And if it wasn't for this film, we would not have the 1979 Ridley Scott classic Alien. Yes, this goofy parody movie of like 2001 A Space Odyssey that has a freaking beach ball. Yes, a beach ball as a monster in it. It is a silly ass movie. Now, I do not have a Blu-ray on this. In fact, a decent amount of these I do not have a Blu-ray. That's the one I got for Dark Star. All right, moving on to his next film from 1976, and this is a steel book here of Assault on Precinct 13. Now, this was remade with Ethan Hawke and Lawrence Fishburne later on. I don't know if I own that, to be honest. I didn't even look for it. I think I do, and I probably should have brought it down here. Yes, I do own it. I had to go grab it off the wall really quick. But I haven't seen it in forever. In fact, the copy I own isn't even open. But there you go. But Assault on Precinct 13, the steel book from Scream Factory. All right, next up, we've got, of course, the immortal classic, his most popular film he ever made, John Carpenter's Halloween on 4K. I've had this film in every kind of format imaginable, including VHS, of course. I used to have the DVD, but I think I got rid of it because, and the Blu-ray. I got rid of that as well as soon as I upgraded to these. But, you can just never get rid of your VHS copies of these things. I mean, what's there to say about this? But, weirdly, there was a film that he filmed before this. It just so happened to be released after this in the same year of 1978. And that was Someone is Watching Me. This is actually the movie he met his future wife, Adrienne Barbeau, on. He then filmed Halloween 2 weeks later, but this released in November and Halloween released in October. So technically this is his fourth film, even though he shot it third. So Someone's Watching Me. This was a movie for about 2 decades. Was considered Carpenter's lost film because it was so hard to get your hands on, and then it finally got a proper release. But I got this in the Twisted Horror collection, along with films like Dr. Giggles. It was like a 5-movie box set, if I remember correctly. I still have all of them. Eyes of a Stranger was another one with Jennifer Jason Leigh, stuff like that. The Hand with Michael Caine. I think I still keep them all together. And I think there's one more, if memory serves. It's Deadly Friend, the Wes Craven film. So yeah, there was a set with all of those in that. And at that time, I want to say this was the only way to get your hands on Carpenter's Someone's Watching Me. I do not know if that ever got a Blu-ray release, but the DVD is what I got now. All right, so a film that a lot of people, I don't even think know exists, but this was his first film that he made with future collaborator on tons of projects, Kurt Russell. And this is his 1979 made-for-TV 3-hour-long epic Elvis. Yes, Elvis, with Kurt Russell as Elvis Presley. Pretty crazy. A lot of people I don't think I've ever seen this. This, in fact, is the only film that I have not covered on the channel. I have seen it. I have seen every Carpenter film, but how many of you have seen Elvis and own a copy? This is also from Shout Factory, not Scream Factory, but I'm sure there's a Blu-ray of it at this point, but I do not have it. One of the ones I do not have the Steelbook on, which I'm pretty sure they made, but I do have the Scream Factory, is his 1980 film, The Fog, his follow-up to Halloween for a lot of people, even though there were 2 films in between, as you can see, but this is the one that everyone remembers. And what's there to say about this? This is, he got to work with his wife again, Adrienne Barbeau. All right, moving on to 1981. We have the Steelbook here from Scream Factory as well for Escape from New York, the first Snake Plissken film of 2. I was always hoping that they would make a third, but never happened. So I guess we're just gonna have to live with the 2 we got. And this is the Escape from New York Steelbook from Scream Factory. Call me Snake. All right, moving on to arguably John Carpenter's best film, a remake, of course, of A Thing from Another World. We have John Carpenter's The Thing, also, of course, followed by the prequel, The Thing, that was not very well received because of the CGI as opposed to the practicals, which is what kind of made this film famous. But I have the Arrow release here because I just love this release, and what I had read is this is the better transfer of the 2, so I went with it. I was going to buy another one just because this is Region B, which, of course, unless you have a all regions player like I do, this won't play on anything but my region free player, and to not have something that I can just throw into any machine I have sucks. But I would like a 4K of this at some point, but as of right now, the Arrow release is what I got to work with, so there you go for that. Moving on to 1983, when Carpenter teamed up with Stephen King, A Marriage Made in Hell, or Heaven for us, is, of course, Christine. I've got the pristine Christine here in the 4K release. This is a beautiful copy, transfer. I had to have it. It was on sale, so I grabbed it. I got rid of my other copy. I forgot to mention, actually, now that I'm doing this, I didn't grab this. I have Escape from New York on VHS here, as well as The Thing here on VHS, which I meant to be doing these alongside of them, but, you know, I'm just grabbing them as I see them. Now we are going to take a venture away from horror, as we did with Elvis. After Christine, he decided he wanted to get a little romantical, and he, of course, then in 1984, with Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen, made the film Starman. Another one of his films that a lot of Carpenter fans have not seen, but I do like this one. As I said, if you want to hear my thoughts on these, you can, of course, check them out. All right, moving on. He took a little hiatus here for 2 years. He was making one a year pretty consistently from 1976 on. But he made 1974, 1976, and then from 78, he was like, boom, 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 boom. Then he took 2 years off to make, of course, the cult classic, which was not well received at the time. Another collaboration with Kurt Russell, one of my faves. Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, the Steelbook here from Scream Factory. Once again, I have a lot of these, and this is just beautiful. I'm definitely a massive fan of Jack Burton and Egg Shen and David Lopan and Eddie, and it's just Gracie Law. It's just such a wonderful film, and I can't for the life of me imagine anyone seeing this and not having the best time ever. But, you know, I can't say much about taste outside of mine. You know, people are entitled to their opinions. and we just deal with it. So next up in 1987, we have The Prince of Darkness, probably his most quote-unquote underrated film, the film that is the most misunderstood for sure. I love the atmosphere of this film. I think it is so dark and so cool, and it's great to see Alice Cooper, Donald Pleasance. We got a lot of familiar faces, and I just think this has such a wonderful tone to it, and I think is probably his most underappreciated film in general. I also have it on VHS as well. So, love it. Really good movie. I was not a huge fan of it when I was younger because I just didn't get it. But nowadays, I get it much better. I don't fully 100% still understand it, but it is his most ambitious film. That I am sure of. All right, next up, in 1988, we have the Steelbook of They Live from Scream Factory as well. This is the Rowdy Piper film that gets a lot of attention and parodied here and there, even from the likes of something like South Park. I also have this one on VHS to accompany it. Because I am a consumer, ironically, I buy, because that's what they tell me. Also, I'm singing songs from boy bands now, I guess. So there you go. They Live. Moving on to 1992. This was his huge hiatus here. A big 4-year gap in between films. Another film that is rarely ever talked about when it comes to Carpenter, mostly because it is not horror and it stars Chevy Chase, but it is taking off of a horror movie. So in some regards, you could say this is a remake of The Invisible Man, but this is Memoirs of the Invisible Man, and this definitely does not in any way, shape, or form play out like a horror movie to me, but it is very interesting to see him kind of tackle material like this. But this is where he hooked up with Sam Neill, and which of course then brought us a later masterpiece, in fact his last fantastic film in my opinion, and we'll get to that one. But in Memoirs of the Invisible Man, not one you hear mentioned much. Next up, in 1993, we have an anthology film that he made, and this is Body Bags. He made this alongside of Tobe Hooper, and Carpenter directs 2 of the segments, as to where Tobe Hooper only does 1 of the segments. It would have been cool if Carpenter just did all 3, but it is what it is. But it's more Carpenter's film, and this is the one where Carpenter makes an appearance as kind of the Crypt Keeper-esque kind of character. So you do get a lot of actual Carpenter within the film. Now, this is of course not the first film he's made an appearance in, but this is the one that he makes the biggest appearance in. So another Scream Factory release here, Blu-ray, cool copy, and I also have that one on VHS as well. Next up, in 1994, the last fantastic film that he made, one of my top 5 Carpenter films. Of course, I'm referring to In the Mouth of Madness. This beautiful Scream Factory release had to be bought. The second it came out. It's such a phenomenal film, in my opinion. One of my favorite Lovecrafts. In fact, it is my favorite Lovecraft film. Just so good in every way. I'm obsessed with this film. Of course, I had it on VHS while I was growing up. I watched it relentlessly. It was one of the films I watched the most as a kid, and this came out when I was 12 years old, and I was obsessed with it. So, of course, had to have every copy of it. I had a VHS, a DVD, a Blu-ray. If it goes out on 4K, I'm sure I'll get that as well. It's a fave of mine for sure. All right, moving on to 1995, we have the remake of the classic film Village of the Damned. I want to say Christopher Reeves, this was one of his last films before his untimely accident where he was paralyzed. And I know he made a movie or 2 after his paralyzation. with the remake of Rear Window, but I think this is one of the last films that he made before he was paralyzed. This also has Kirstie Alley in it, and I don't know, it's fine. And you can also, I actually do own, I should have got it, but it's okay. I have Children of the Damned, Village of the Damned, the 2-pack of the original films as well on DVD. All right, because it's a physical media, collection thing and all, I had to go grab it, of course. So there you go. Both of them, as well as this on VHS. So I got it in a few different ways. One thing I don't think I showed here back with it was, unfortunately, this garbage thing, which is the Fog remake, which I have not seen since theaters, and I have always wanted to go back and review on the channel. This is something that I'm going to have to be coaxed into, so if enough of you ask for it, I will do it. But man, it will be begrudgingly, let me tell you. It says, from the makers of Halloween. How dare they? How dare they even put that on here? We then move on to 1996 with John Carpenter's only directed sequel, and this, of course, is Escape from LA. Snake is back. This time he goes to Los Angeles. Yeah, it's a very silly follow-up, a very goofy movie. It's definitely not the film we all wanted it to be, but I'm still glad it exists, regardless of how goofy it may be. Then 2 years later, in 1998, he released John Carpenter's Vampires with James Woods. Another one that I'm not huge on, but it's got some really funny one-liners from James Woods. I think that's probably what makes the film watchable, is just how unhinged and kind of psychotic James Woods' dialogue is in this movie. He really just kind of brings his brand to this and goes full force, which is what makes it entertaining. Coming on to the last film that Carpenter released in theaters that I got to see, which was in 2001, his first film in the 2000s and one of only two, John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars with Natasha Henstridge and Ice Cube. We also have a young Jason Statham in here. I want to say this is one of the earlier roles of his that I'd seen him in. Oh man, this is definitely one of those movies that I have nostalgia for. It has Pam Grier. It has Clea Duvall. I saw this in theaters with my family, and they were so pissed off at me when we left the theater. They were like, "You really made us sit through that shit?" And I was like, "It's Carpenter, man. I had to go see it." And they're like, "Well, Carpenter has fallen off a long ways from where he came." And they were right. They were also fans of his. They just weren't as big of a fan as I was with film in general. But it's definitely not great, but I still do enjoy watching it, as silly as it may be. All right, now moving on to the television side of things. This is the only way I could get a copy of this one. I think that they do also sell it individually, but this is how I found it in the wild. A lot of these were bought in the wild. And this is the 2005 episode of Masters of Horror, Cigarette Burns. And this might actually be the best Masters of Horror episode. I haven't reviewed every single one of these on here, but I have done both of these episodes. I mean, these are basically films. This one stars Norman Reedus, and he's looking for the La Fin Absolue du Monde, which they talk about quite a bit in here, a forbidden film. And yeah, it's got Udo Kier in it. I am a big fan of this one. I definitely agree this is one of the better episodes and absolutely the best thing Carpenter did since In the Mouth of Madness, in my opinion. So there you go. He then, of course, then followed it up the next year with Masters of Horror Pro-Life. This is the one that I really didn't like the first time that I saw it, But upon revisiting it for the channel, I actually quite liked it and thought it had a pretty cool message behind it. You can interpret it in one way or the other if you'd like, on whether or not it is pro-life or pro-choice. That's for another discussion, but I actually did quite enjoy this. And then we are coming to the end here, coming to the close. Unfortunately, this is not a good swan song for Carpenter, but this was him kind of returning to making a bigger budgeted film with some big names on it. And this, of course, is John Carpenter's The Ward, starring Amber Heard. Oh, well, how well that has aged. It also has Mamie Gummer. Of course, she is the daughter of Meryl Streep. We got Daniel Panabaker in here. We got Jared Harris. I think, if I remember correctly, Sydney Sweeney is even in this movie. You've got a good amount of familiar faces in this one. I have tried watching this a few times now, and I'm always really surprised at how generic and terrible this movie actually is. I just cannot believe this is Carpenter. But at some point, a lot of directors just, their talent kind of, I don't know what happens. I really don't know what happens. I don't know if it's because their ego gets the best of them and they stop collaborating and they start becoming egomaniacs on set, won't listen to anyone's ideas, or does the well just dry up? You know, some directors seem to be able to go on forever and make really good movie after really good movie, a la Martin Scorsese. But a lot of other directors, they just kind of hit a wall creatively, and we just get bad film after bad film, and you're kind of screaming, please stop. Much like Dario Argento or a lot of other classic horror directors. But Carpenter, of course, gave us some of the greatest horror movies of all time. He currently just did an episode of this Suburban Scream show, which I tried to watch. I didn't even get through it. It was so terrible. And he directed that one from home, so he literally phoned it in. It feels like it. What a dreadful show. And his name is on it. It's actually called John Carpenter's Suburban Screams, which obviously is a paycheck film for him. Or should I say TV show. But I have no interest in ever going back. Now, he has had a lot of rumblings that he wanted to take on a new project, especially after he did the music for the new Halloween trilogy. That kind of got his creative juices flowing again and made him kind of excited to return to the director's chair. I don't know. What would you want? I don't want Carpenter to make another movie. I think his talent is gone. I don't think he has it in him. I'd love to be proven wrong. Like, if he releases a film and it's great, I will eat my words very thankfully. I will be sitting there going, I am so happy I was wrong, but I just don't think I am. You know, Argento keeps making movies and they keep being terrible, in my opinion. And it's just, you know, at some point you gotta say, look, I just don't got it anymore. I made some amazing stuff, and you don't want to tarnish your legacy with a bunch of subpar efforts. I mean, this is the whole reason Quentin Tarantino did this whole 10 film thing, and he's gonna make his last film here, is because he doesn't want to go the way of some of his favorite directors like Carpenter. I know he's a huge fan of Dark Star and Assault on Precinct 13 and The Thing and a bunch of other movies in Carpenter's filmography. So I think he looks to Carpenter as a cautionary tale of sorts and wants to kind of get out before he makes his The Ward or his Ghost of Mars. I don't personally think Quentin Tarantino is capable of making something like that, but if you would have asked me during Carpenter's height if he could have made something like Ghosts of Mars, I would have never believed it to be true. So it is possible that Tarantino or other directors could get to that level where they make such subpar shit, or even like way worse than subpar. But he has left one hell of a legacy. And of course, being a big Carpenter fan, I had to have every film of his. I don't have everything on Blu-ray or 4K like I'd like in some of these cases, but you know, you got to prioritize your money. And there are certain films in here that like an Escape from LA. I know that there is a Blu-ray from Scream Factory, or maybe it's Shout Factory because it's not horror. I don't remember, but I just don't like the movie enough to upgrade, right? That's always what it comes down to. I upgraded everything I have on Blu-ray or 4K is because I really love those movies and I wanted to upgrade to them. If I don't like them as much, or if they do not have a Blu-ray that I'm aware of, that is why I do not have it. So it makes sense. I bought DVDs when they came out. It's not like I started my collection 6 months ago and I bought DVDs, right? If I would have started collecting 6 months ago, I would only be buying Blu-rays, and if there was no other choice, I would buy a DVD or whatnot. So if you see it, that's why. Anyways, I hope this was fun for you guys, and I enjoyed making it. And tell me what you would want to see next. I think that I'm going to potentially do Dario Argento next, but I haven't made up my mind. But I have a lot of things planned in the future for this physical media kind of show and tell. It's cool, and I have an incredible library to draw from. And I can show you guys a whole bunch of cool films that I own, and I definitely would love to show them off since I've been collecting for over 30 years of my life. I've amassed quite the collection, and I am all here for sharing it with you guys. So thanks for joining me, and tell me if you enjoyed this and if you want to see more, and make sure that if you're not subscribed to the channel that you do so. And once again, for the 800th time, if you want to know any of my deeper opinions on any of these films outside of Elvis, I did a review on pretty much everything that I talked about here. So yeah, check it out. There's actually a John Carpenter playlist that I made that has everything that he did that I reviewed all together. I finally made playlists. So there you go. Let me know. All right, guys, I'll see you in the comments. Bye.